Yo, what is up, gamers? I hope everyone is ready. I hope everyone's locked in because we are going to do something I'm calling the review bonanza. Because we're way behind on reviews, and round one playoffs is already over, and we haven't even reviewed week 5. I'm just gonna sit here by myself and review all the matches. I haven't seen a lot of these, or for the regular season at least, and then hopefully I'll get a guest on for at least the playoffs. Those are a little bit more significant matches, so it's nice to have a second set of eyes on them. But yeah, I'm not gonna waste any more time. I'll just, one thing I'll say is, if you want to watch this or listen to this instead of watching, I'm gonna try my best to describe everything that happens so that way you don't need to put your eyes on the screen. So we'll try to do that. And we're just gonna do week 5, then week 6, then week 7, back to back to back. I have all the week 5 matches pulled up. There'd be probably a brief pause between them as I we'll need to take the time to pull up the other week matches, but yeah, I think we're ready to go. And so with that, let's just get into it. So this first match is a week 5 match. We'll start with these will all be week 5 matches. It's going to be me, the Fairy Tailwind, versus the Gen 3 Janitors. Alex is the captain. And yeah, let's just jump into it. I mean, this is an interesting matchup. We have Cradley versus Kyogre, which is Cradley was picked primarily as a Kyogre answer. So it should be favorable for Cradley. Yeah. So let's see how it goes. So we have Shiftry, Gardevoir led into a Regirock and Dusclops. Gardevoir traces pressure from Dusclops. And we see an Energy Ball coming out of Gardevoir into the Regirock, does about 40%. Taunt comes from Shiftry into Dusclops. That'll stop any sort of Trick Room shenanigans. Regirock does fire back with the Body Press into Shiftry, dropping it to a Focus Sash. Trick Room can't come out after the taunt. So Zangoose comes in. Second Energy Ball into Regirock, drops it to 20. Leaf Blade onto the Regirock will finish it off. And Zangoose switches in. That Toxic Orb does trigger, and now that Zangoose is poisoned, that'll trigger its Toxic Boost ability, which will double, or not double, but will increase its attack stat by 50%. Kyogre hits the field. Drizzle comes out. I switch in from Shiftry to Salamence, getting an Intimidate drop onto Zangoose. Gardevoir goes into Mega Gardevoir and uses Hyper Voice. The Hyper Voice does about 70% to Zangoose and 30% to Kyogre. A Poison Jab comes out from Zangoose, killing Gardevoir in one hit, and Ice Beam comes out from Kyogre, killing Salamence in one hit. Not a great turn for the Fairy Tailwind, just exploiting those weaknesses. The Toxic does chip Zangoose down to about 22%. But now we have Shiftry coming out with the Loomis in the back. Fake Out goes into Kyogre. Bug Buzz goes into Zangoose. And that does take it down. So now we have a Shiftry with 1 HP into Kyogre with Illumise support. Dusclops comes back out onto the field. Tailwind from the Illumise will trigger Wind Rider from Shiftry. But Shadow Sneak comes out from Dusclops, killing Shiftry since it was at Sash. And that's going to pretty much be the story of the game, because Illumise cannot beat Dusclops Kyogre by itself. The Helping Hand does come out from Dusclops. Bug Buzz does only 16% to Kyogre, but it heals up with a Citrus Berry and just uses an Ice Beam to finish the game. So yeah, I think this is a perfect example of how vulnerable my team is to just getting Ice Beamed. Yeah, I don't know. My two big Pokemon, Gardevoir and Salamence, have very exploitable weaknesses. I don't really have a redirection or anything to help get around it. And we saw that on full display here. Yeah, good win for Alex. All right, game 2. This is a disgusting one. I will warn you. So I go with Cradley immediately and Slowking. We see Dusclops and Kyogre on the other side. Good matchup for the Cradley. Love to see it. Kyogre switches out immediately into Regirock. Shadow Sneak comes out from Dusclops into Slowking, does about 20%. Leech Seed will go into that Regirock slot, and Slowking uses Imprison. That'll stop any Trick Room from coming out. Although I don't think Trick Room would even be good. But it stops Protect, which is also important. Yeah, so the Leech Seed starts to chip that Regirock. We see another Shadow Seek into the Slowking. Heavy Slam goes into Cradley, doing pretty significant damage. Second Leech Seed goes into Dusclops, and Slowking will go for a Yawn. So now you have two seeded Pokemon, and one of them's Drowsy. The Leech Seed will heal Cradley back up from about 50 to 75%. As it chips both Pokemon down on the opposite side. We see a Protect come out from Cradley. Shadow Sneak goes into Slowking one more time. Slowking will eat the Citrus Berry, getting back to 60%. The Protect blocks Heavy Slam from Regirock. And then the Leech Seed gets Cradley back up to 95%. Zangoose hits the field. Regirock switches out, getting rid of that seed. And then we see Salamence switch as well, dropping an Intimidate onto the Zangoose. Cradley goes for Giga Drain into Zangoose, healing it to full, and Leech Seed will also continue to heal it up to full. Dusclops falls asleep and stays sleeping. Zangoose does trigger that Toxic Orb. We see a switch back into Slowking. The Regenerator on that Slowking does heal it back to 93%. Dusclops switches out into Regirock, and we see a Protect from Cradley. Poison Jab goes into Cradley, but it is blocked. The Poison chips Zangoose a little bit. We see a switch from Zangoose into Kyogre. Meanwhile, Cradley switches out into Salamence. This gets an Intimidate onto the Kyogre, but an Ice Punch was coming from Regirock into that Salamence slot, killing Salamence instantaneously. So Salamence just having a rough time this match. We see a Yawn come out from Slowking into that Regirock. Now it's Drowsy. Illumise comes out, uses Sunny Day. That Sunny Day will help stop any potential water spouts, but Thunderbolt goes into Slowking, does about 49%. We see a Rock Slide from Regirock doing 70% to Illumise and getting Slowking down to only 15% remaining. The Yawn does go out into Kyogre, making it Drowsy, and Regirock falls asleep, as it had been yawned earlier. I don't remember if I mentioned that, but yeah, Cradley comes back out. We see an Encore from Illumise. That'll lock Kyogre into that Thunderbolt, which is great because it protects Cradley. Kyogre does fall asleep. And now we're on turn 9. Regirock wakes up, goes for the Rock Slide. Slowking heals again from the Regenerators. It switches back in for Illumise. Down to 20% though after the Rock Slide slip. Cradley's down to 63. Leech Seed does come out from Cradley into the Regirock, heals it 12% to 75. Toxic chips Zangoose down to 54. Oh yeah, Zangoose does switch in for Kyogre. Sorry, I'm not doing a good job of keeping up with everything. This is a long and complicated match, I'm not gonna lie. But yeah, double Protect. Zangoose goes for knockoff into Slowking. It's blocked, and Regirock goes for heavy slam into Cradley. The Leech Seed will heal Cradley off that Regirock. The Toxic will chip Zangoose. Now we're looking at 40% on Zangoose and Regirock, with 20% on Slowking and 80%, or nearly 90% on Cradley. You can tell Cradley is being really annoying. Slowking goes for the double Protect. It does work. And blocks a knockoff from Zangoose. Heavy Slam goes into Cradley, dropping it from 90 to 38%, but Cradley goes for a Giga Drain into the Zangoose, dropping it down to 10% remaining and healing Cradley back to 54. The Leech Seed will get Cradley back to 66, and the Toxic Chip will cause Zangoose to faint. Now Dusclops comes out, still asleep from earlier. We do see a switch from Slowking into Illumise. Rock Slide comes out, will kill that Illumise. But Cradley is able to Leech Seed the Dusclops in response. The Leech Seed from both will heal Cradley all the Rock Slide chip damage, basically. It lost 27%, but now it's back to 60 where it was pretty much before. Now we see Slowking hit the field again. Regenerator brings it up to 50% from the 20 it was at before. Cradily will use a Protect, and Slowking will also go for a Protect. Dusclops sleeps for a turn. Ice Punch comes out from Regirock into Cradily, but the Leech Seed chip gets it down to just 2%, and another Leech Seed chip onto the Dusclops gets it down to 40. Crady's back up to 80%. We see a swap from Regirock into the Kyogre, which will remove that Leech Seed. Dusclops wakes up, goes for Shadow Sneak into Slowking, which drops it a little. Cradily uses Giga Drain into Dusclops. It doesn't do very much, only 10%. Heals Cradily back to 85. And Slowking goes for another Imprison. Leech Seed will trip the Dusclops and heal Cradily back to 95%. Kyogre is still asleep from earlier. Leech Seed comes out from Cradily, and Slowking actually goes for Trick Room. So this Imprison mostly stopping Protect. The Leech Seed chips Dusclops down to 3% and heals and chips Kyogre. Cradily is all the way back to 100 now. Slowking uses a Protect. Cradily uses a Protect. The Shadow Sneak is blocked by the Protect. Kyogre sleeps again. The Leech Seed chip finally takes out the Dusclops, and Kyogre's getting chipped. Cradily is at 100% still. Regirock comes out, only 2% HP. Slowking goes for Protect, but it does fail. Giga Drain comes out from Cradily, which will finish off that Regirock, and now it's just a sleeping Kyogre versus Cradily Slowking. And that Kyogre is still seated. It sleeps a third turn, so pretty rough sleep turns there. It gets chipped by Leech Seed once again. And yeah, the Giga Drain comes out and the Kyogre getting it down to 35. It eats its Citrus Berry and wakes up. It's able to use Thunderbolt, but Slowking uses Protect. The Leech Seed comes out and chips Kyogre down to 47. Slowking yawns the Kyogre again. Giga Drain gets it down to 15. Thunderbolt comes out, finally taking out Slowking. But the Leech Seed will just chip Kyogre down and one more Protect, and Kyogre will go down to the final chip of the Leech Seed. So, yeah, it took 20 turns, but eventually Cradily wins pretty much just by being super, super, super annoying, along with Slowking spamming yawns and swapping out for like Regenerator and stuff. So yeah, I was pretty proud of this match. This is definitely a highlight reel for Cradily. It's gonna have so much healing stats at the end. Okay, but yeah, now let's go into game 3. So we see Slowking and Cradily again, going for sort of a similar strategy. Dusclops and Zangoose coming out on the other side. Shadow Sneak goes immediately into Slowking, and Zangoose goes for a knockoff. This gets Slowking down to only 8% and gets rid of its Citrus Berry. Cradily goes for a Leech Seed into the Zangoose slot, and Slowking will use a Yawn onto Dusclops. So Zangoose is seated and toxic. Dusclops does switch out to avoid that sleep from the Yawn. Slowking will use Protect. Knockoff goes into Slowking, which will be protected. But Leech Seed misses onto Regirock this time. Very sad times for Cradily. But Zangoose is chipped from Toxic and Seed down to 70%. Kyogre comes out in place of Zangoose. Slowking goes for a double Protect, but it does fail. The Rock Slide comes out, takes out the Slowking, does some chip to Cradily, now at 75%, no Seeds to speak of. Does get Leech Seed onto the Regirock though, and gets up to 87. Now Gardevoir comes out, it traces Clear Body, goes for the Mega form, while Cradily protects. Energy Ball into Kyogre does about 48%. Kyogre goes for the Ice Beam into Cradily, which does miss. And then Regirock uses Heavy Slam, which kills Gardevoir instantaneously. So again, my Mega Pokemon, my best Pokemon, just really aren't showing up in these matchups. I gotta say, kind of pathetic. Yeah, you know, it is what it is. Yeah, but Regirock chipped down to 75, and Cradely's back to full from the Leech Seed. Now Loomies hits the field, uses an Encore into Regirock. That'll lock it into Heavy Slam, although who really cares? I don't know why I did that. I think I just didn't have anything better to do. I don't know. Ice Beam comes out into Cradily. It does use the Yachi Berry to only take 25% from it. Heavy Slam comes out from Regirock into the Loomies. I guess I was avoiding Rock Slide. Due to that Encore, and the Lumi's tanks it pretty well, only about 50% damage. Giga Drain comes out from Cradily into that Kyogre, does heal it back up to 89. Kyogre each of the Citrus Berry and is about 50%. The Leech Seed will chip the Regirock, and Cradily is full health once again. Now we see a swap from Kyogre into the Dusclops. Tailwind comes out from Illumise. Giga Drain goes into that Dusclops slot, but it won't do very much, only about 10%. Heavy Slam comes out from Regirock into that Cradily. This is where it's like, I think if I Giga Drain this Regirock, it's a lot better. Because I need this Regirock to die, because it's the biggest threat to Cradily. Kinda. Other than Kyogre. Kyogre's also a pretty big threat, so I mean, whatever. But yeah, this Heavy Slam does do about 40%. Helping Hand comes out. Bug Buzz goes into the Regirock. Giga Drain goes into the Regirock, but the Regirock is able to live with only 7%. Cradily does heal a little bit, but that Helping Hand body Heavy Slam gets it down to 2%. It barely lives. The Leech Seed will heal it back up to 10, but now Cradily is in big trouble. It will use Protect while we go for an Encore into the Dusclops. That'll lock it into Helping Hand. It uses Helping Hand into Zangoose. Zangoose goes for a Poison Jab and finishes off Illumise. But now it's just Cradily versus the entire world, and Cradily, as good as it is, it can't really just beat the entire field by itself at only 10% HP, and so that will win the game. So yeah, honestly, Cradily did great. It was dragged down by its bad teammates. Slowking was okay, but yeah, no, the rest of the team kind of falling flat, I'm not gonna lie. So yeah, good win for Alex, and a way to, like, play into a really annoying strategy and win. So now we'll move on to, this is the Kecleon's Corner Bodega versus We Come in Peace. So let's see how it goes. The Bodega has brought pretty typical stuff. They have Manectric, Registeel, Feraligatr, Altaria, Ludicolo, and Groudon. And then We Come in Peace. His defense form, Deoxys, Meganium, Hariyama, Absol, Masquerain, and Regice. So we see a lead from Ludicolo and Altaria into Meganium and Hariyama. So immediate Cloud9 will come out from Altaria. We see a Mega Altaria and a Mega on Meganium. Fake Out will go into the Hariyama. The Fake Out from Hariyama goes back into Altaria, doing actually a pretty significant 20%, only 10% into that Hariyama though. So we do see a flinch there. The Dazzling Gleam comes out from Meganium, kills Altaria instantly, and chips Ludicolo down to 60%. Groudon now hitting the field. We'll get that Sun Up. We see a Wide Guard from Hariyama. Encore comes out from Ludicolo, which will Encore into that Wide Guard. The Eruption will be blocked entirely by that Wide Guard. And then Solar Beam fires back from Meganium, killing Groudon instantaneously. Now it's just Feraligatr hitting the field. We see a swap from that. We don't want that Wide Guard. Locked Hariyama on the field. It'll swap into Masquerain, gets an Intimidate drop onto the Feraligatr. Feraligatr goes for an Ice Punch, only does about 30% to that Meganium. Scald comes out from Ludicolo for only 20% into the Masquerain that just swapped in, and then the Solar Beam will come out from Meganium, killing Feraligatr instantaneously. Now it's just Ludicolo versus 4. U-turn will hit Ludicolo, bringing it down to 7%, and then Deoxys Defense Form hits the field. Giga Drain does hit that Deoxys, getting Ludicolo back to 20%, but one more Dazzling Gleam will finish that off and finish the game. So yeah, pretty thorough destruction from this Meganium. Absolutely wrecking James's team. Kind of hit everything that James brought for super effective. So I would love to see maybe a switch up, bringing Registeel to help with Meganium in game 2, but I just don't know, because Weather Ball from Meganium, also a really big problem. And Wide Guard was really well used here. Really well used. So yeah, let's see what happens in game 2. We see Groudon and Ludicolo in the lead this time. Meganium hitting the field next to Masquerain. So good instant Intimidate drop onto that Groudon will help out. We see Mega form used on Meganium, fake out into that Meganium. Tailwind used by Masquerain will help Meganium move faster, more consistently. Fire Punch actually from Groudon, really nice, good to have that coverage so you're not totally shut out by Wide Guard. That gets Meganium down to 7%. And we do see that it is Life Orb on the Groudon, chipping it down. U-turn comes from Masquerain on the second turn here, getting Ludicolo down from 100 down to 10%. Pretty massive damage from that Masquerain, pretty impressive stuff. We see Hariyama coming out, and then Solar Beam will be used by the Meganium into that Groudon, finishing it off. RIP Groudon. And we see Scald coming out from Ludicolo, doesn't quite do enough to finish off the very low HP Meganium. It's 17% now, it's only at 10%. So yeah, that's not good enough on that Scald. The Tailwind still has 2 more turns to activate. Altaria comes out. It will shut down the sun. It uses its Mega Evolution, but the Fake Out goes into Ludicolo. And Altaria, we've seen this before. It happens again. The Dazzling Gleam from Meganium does just finish it immediately. And now we have only Feraligatr in the back. Okay, so no switch up. The Solar Beam will just kill the Feraligatr easily, and that's a 4-turn game. Yeah, so that's really rough. Yeah, Meganium didn't have answers, I think. And I feel like James didn't really do much to adjust for trying to beat it. So yeah, once the Tailwind went up, it just felt pretty GG. A little bit more Protect stall for the Tailwind could have helped maybe, but I just don't know if you had the speed to actually be faster than this Meganium. So it's a little bit of a problem. So yeah, Meganium really showed up and carried the team this time around. So very nice to see. Now we're gonna move into the match between the Spirit Airlines and the Steampunks, 2 teams that are still in the tournament. So far, we've been seeing teams that have been eliminated, actually, which is kind of funny. But yeah, now let's watch some teams that haven't been eliminated yet and see how their matchup. This is actually really funny because this is going to be the round 2 matchup in the tournament. So this is a really relevant preview of that. We see Spirit Airlines with Latios, Chimecho, Aggron, Volbeat, Crawdon, and Spinda as their brings. And then on the opposite side for the Steampunks, we have the Metagross, Blaziken, Shedinja, Swampert, Pelipper, and Swellow. So we will see how that will play out here in this game 1. So we have, first of all, Spinda and Chimecho hitting the field. On the other side, we have Swampert, Pelipper. So this puts Swampert in an immediate position to Mega Evolve and get speed control. Swampert goes for a Protect, however, Fake Out goes into Swampert, so good Protect into that Fake Out. And Pelipper will use Tailwind, getting some speed control, but the Trick Room does go up from that Chimecho, so self Trick Room from Chimecho puts that Tailwind to flips that Tailwind around, basically. So now we see a Helping Hand go into the Chimecho, uses Psychic onto Swampert. Swampert gets down to 23%, but the Wave Crash, new move at this point, this is when Wave Crash had just been added as a Swampert move. Wave Crash fires back into that Chimecho, killing it instantly. But Swampert will die from the recoil damage. Meanwhile, a Hurricane comes out from Pelipper, getting Spinda down to only 43% and confusing it. Nice confuse there. Crawdon does come out, and in this Tailwind or Trick Room Tailwind situation, Crawdont does come out in the Tailwind Trick Room, and we see Shedinja on the other side. Crawdont is immediately swapped for Aggron. There's an ally switch from the Shedinja, and another Hurricane goes into Spinda, which will finish off that Spinda. I'm really confused by that swap out from Crawdont. It's kind of weird. But yeah, Crawdon comes back on the field, and the Aggron will use Rock Slide. It does 70% to Pelipper and triggers the Sash of Shedinja. The Crawdon goes for a knockoff into Shedinja, which will finish it off. And then we see a Hurricane coming out from Pelipper into the Crawdon, getting it down from 100 to 36% and triggering yet another Confusion. Very nice. Only one more turn of Trick Room. Blaziken hits the field and uses Protect to burn that last Trick Room turn. We do see a Rock Slide coming out from Aggron. Will get that Aggron down, or sorry, get the Pelipper down, and then Crawdon goes for a knockoff into Blaziken, which will hit the Protect and then do nothing. Trick Room ends. Blaziken gets a speed boost and now uses Aura Sphere into the Aggron. Because of Sturdy, Aggron does survive, and the knockoff comes out from the Crawdont. Earthquake will be used by Aggron and finish off the Blaziken and drop the Crawdont down to 3%. So really, really kind of crazy close game. I don't know. I don't know that there's anything obvious that could have been done to me. I remember when I watched this the first time, there was something that I thought would have been better. Like I think I was thinking you have to kill Crawdont, because I think if you kill Crawdont with Aura Sphere here, then you maybe survive the earthquake, but you still have to hit Aggron twice. And I just don't think you're ever going to be able to do that before you die. Like, because of Sturdy. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think the other thing you could have done is like Shedinja. Shedinja had, I think, Shedinja could have Shadow Sneak to break Sturdy, maybe. But like, yeah, it's a pretty close one. It's a really close one. Obviously, the game ends with the Aggron on 1 HP and also Crawdont also on 1 HP. So yeah, it's pretty good. I mean, at the end of the day, if that earthquake had killed, I don't know. Yeah, it's tricky. But yeah, good game one. And now we go into game two. See what Greenlee can pull off. So this time it's going to be a different lead from the airline. It's going to be Latios Volbeat. And we see Pelipper Swampert, same lead from Greenlee on the other side. So that's going to set the rain immediately. We see a Protect coming out from Swampert. Tailwind comes from Volbeat. And Thunder goes into the Pelipper. It uses Walking Berry and does survive with only 14%. Tailwind comes out from that Pelipper. So we're matched Tailwinds, and that means Swampert can be the faster Pokemon. It will use its Mega Evolution to get its Swift Swim ability, uses Knockoff into that Latios, and kills it right away. Critical hit. I'm not sure that crit, if that mattered. I think it probably did, though. Because, yeah, getting 100% from Latios is kind of a big deal. So Latios just dies instantly. No more Soul Dew. Bug Buzz goes into Pelipper, but Pelipper is such an absolute tank. Actually lives it. So it lived the Thunder and down to 15%, and then it lives the Bug Buzz. Now it's down to 6%. So yeah, Hurricane firing back into the Volbeat is Cova Berry does weaken that, and it goes down to only 60. After that, Hurricane Crawdont comes down, hits the field. Wave Crash goes from Swampert into the Volbeat, finishing it off, and we see a Hurricane into the Crawdont. First time it doesn't confuse. The Liquidation will fire back from Crawdont, finishing off Swampert, but Crawdont down to 44%. Due to the Hurricane. Pelipper still on the field. So now we see Shedinja coming out. Chimecho hitting the field. Chimecho does use the Mega form. Poltergeist from Shedinja drops that Chimecho down to 5% very quickly. And the U-turn coming out from Pelipper, super effective into Crawdont, does get it down to 23%. Although I will say, you could have just Hurricane, but whatever. It does allow Blaziken to come out. Calm Mind comes from the Oh yeah, that is rough because now the liquidation from Crawdont just kills the Blaziken instantly. So not the best U-turn when a Hurricane would have sufficed, but you know it is what it is. So unfortunate turn there. We see the tailwinds from both teams ending, and Pelipper gets back onto the field. And we did see the I didn't mention, but the Chimecho goes for a Calm Mind. So Chimecho's 5%, Crawdont 23%. And Chimecho has that Calm Mind boost. Shadow Sneak will come out from Shedinja, and that is going to be the end of Chimecho. No chance there for Chimecho to really get anything done. And the Hurricane fires back from Pelipper, this time killing the Crawdont and ending the game. So yeah, it was a pretty thorough, I would say a pretty thorough victory overall for Steampunks there. Like, you didn't have to lose Blaziken for no reason, but it is what it is. Doesn't matter. You were in such a good position. Anyway, so Shedinja really, really stepping up that time, doing pretty much fully handling Chimecho, no problems. Yeah, and so now we'll go into game 3. Let's see how it goes. Chimecho hits the field with Spinda this time around. Swampert comes out with Pelipper once again for a third game in a row. We see an immediate Mega Evolution from that Chimecho. Fake Out goes into Pelipper. It flinches. Swampert will just use knockoff. So first time we didn't see Protect on turn 1 from Swampert. Kind of a good mix-up there. That knockoff will, do 45% to Chimecho. Chimecho goes for the Trick Room. No surprises. Helping Hand comes out into the Chimecho, and Psychic from Chimecho will drop Pelipper down to 20%. Wave Crash comes out from Swampert into the Chimecho. I will say, I think that if Wave Crash had been used turn 1, there really wasn't a reason to knock off, because if you Wave Crash turn 1, you're going to kill Chimecho immediately. So, it is what it is, but whatever. You get it eventually. Now you take less recoil damage, so there's some value in that. But you could have avoided the Trick Room, which would have been nice. But anyway, Swampert takes a little bit of recoil and finishes off the Chimecho. Hurricane comes out from Pelipper, dropping Spinda down to 44%. What did Spinda even do? Oh, Helping Hand. Helping Hand into the Pokemon that died. Oh yeah, that's unfortunate. The Swampert is actually slower than Chimecho without using its Mega. So very good call not to Mega there. Oh no, use Psychic. Okay, Helping Hand Psychic only did 70%. Oof. Okay, anyway. So Crawdont now hitting the field. Swampert is not slower than Chimecho in Trick Room. Yeah. Okay. But Crawdont is out now. We see a Sucker Punch from Spinda, dropping Pelipper from 20 to 8%. Liquidation from Crawdont, as we've already seen before, does KO that Swampert. From pretty much 85%, so I think it would probably do from full, especially in the rain. But Confusion does trigger once again onto that Crawdont. It's pretty high number of Confusions from these Hurricanes, like more than 50% of them, I think. Shedinja comes out, hits the field. We see a swap from Crawdont into the Aggron, Ally Switch, and then Skill Swap actually goes from the Spinda onto the Aggron, which will give Aggron Contrary, which will be really interesting to see. Pelipper uses Hurricane into Spinda and does finish it off. And now Crawdont back on the field, one more turn of Trick Room. Aggron uses Superpower, which will bring Pelipper down and give Aggron an attack and defense boost due to that Contrary skill swap. Knockoff comes out from Aggron into Shedinja, will trigger the Sash. Poltergeist comes out from the Shedinja into Aggron. And actually that doesn't trigger Rocky Helmet, interestingly, so it does allow the Shedinja just to be chilling. But yeah, it only chips the Aggron by about 20%. Now Blaziken hits the field, uses Detect on turn 1. X-Scissor comes out from Shedinja, finishing off the Crawdont. And we see an Earthquake come out from the Aggron. It does not hit Shedinja due to Wonder Guard and lands into the Protect of Blaziken. Blaziken gets the speed boost off. Blaziken goes for the Aura Sphere, which kills Aggron instantly. Yeah, 4 times damage into a low special defense Pokemon. This is a fully special Blaziken, and it really pays off. That is a dead Aggron, and that is the game for the Steampunks. So, yeah, nicely played, well done, Steampunks. Love to see it. Now we're going to get to our final matchup of week 5. This is the, Sunny Shore Wakes versus the Setopolis Stooges. Let's make sure we have the games here in order. Yes, we do. So let's go ahead and just check them out. For the Sunny Shore Wakes, we see Latias, we see Sableye, Mawile, Celio, Torkoal, Bennett. I think this is the Bennett debut, if I'm not mistaken. It might be the second time we see Bennett, but yeah. And then on the other side, we do see Rayquaza, Jirachi, Melodic, Medicham, Slacking, and Grumpig. So I think this is the first Grumpig we've seen, so that'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But yeah, let's watch it and see how it goes. I don't think I've seen this one. So you see Bennett and Sableye hitting the field, or if I did, it's just been a while. Bennett, Sableye hitting the field. The Sableye will Frisk, find an Occaberry on Jirachi and an Expert Belt on Slacking. Fake Out goes into Slacking from the Sableye. Skill Swap comes out from Jirachi, steals that Prankster away and gives Serene Grace. Very nice to get rid of Prankster off Sableye. And then Trick Room will come out from the Bannett, so that puts the Wakes into a Trick Room scenario. Sableye's going to switch, gets the Intimidate drop from Mawile onto the Slacking and Jirachi. Jirachi goes for an Encore into that Trick Room, which will cause the Trick Room to be reversed. Wow, interesting. Yeah, with Prankster Encore, you can do that. Then we see Mawile go for a Mega Evolution and Protect. This means that Bannett is staying in to go for a second Trick Room, or a third Trick Room, I should say. Once this Trick Room is out, on the next turn we see a swap into Torkoal. We see a swap into Rayquaza, a Reflect coming out from the Jirachi. Oh, sorry, a Protect coming out. The Reflect was the previous turn. We saw Jirachi's Reflect, I forgot to mention it. But yeah, we see a swap into Rayquaza. Knockoff goes into Jirachi, but does hit the Protect. And Rayquaza hits the field. Now we have another switch. Melodic hitting the field. Mega Rayquaza uses a Mega, which will turn off the sun from that Torkoal. Eruption comes out, does very little damage due to the removal of sun and the resist on both Pokemon. So we chip Rayquaza to 75 and Melodic to 82. We see a Play Rough come out, though, from the Mawile. That is not nearly as resisted and is able to take out the Rayquaza. Melodic does heal a little bit from leftovers. Slaking hits the field. Yawn comes out from Torkoal into that Slaking. The knockoff goes from the Mawile into the Melodic, which will stop the leftovers heal. Very meaningful stuff. The Toxic comes out from Melodic into the Torkoal, and Slaking will use Earthquake, which does a lot of damage to Melodic, but also a lot of damage to both Torkoal and Mawile, bringing them to 32 and 22% respectively. Melodic down to 30% as well, and without any leftovers heal to work on. And so now we see a swap from the Slaking to avoid falling asleep. We see another Yawn come from Torkoal into that Jirachi that's coming in. The Toxic will chip. Play Rough will finish off the Melodic. Toxic will chip down to 20% on Torkoal. And so now we are in our last turn of our Trick Room is ending. And Slaking hits the field one more time. Jirachi is going to fall asleep after this turn. Jirachi goes for a Protect. Mawile also goes for a Protect. Slaking goes for a Earthquake, which will finish Torkoal. And now Jirachi falls asleep. Sableye comes back on the field, uses Disable into that Slaking. That will stop the Earthquake from coming out. Play Rough will come out from Mawile into the Slaking, does get the attack drop. Slaking is just loafing around due to its ability. Truant. And then Quash will go into Slaking, but that doesn't really do anything. Quash goes into Slaking on the next turn. That will make sure that it acts last, allowing Mawile to finish it off with a play rough. Mawile goes for a protect, while Taunt comes out from the Sableye into the Jirachi, who is sleeping for a third turn. Sucker Punch will go into Jirachi. Quash goes into the Jirachi. And Jirachi doesn't have any moves with the Taunt. Will just struggle and fall. And so that is going to be the end of game one. Pretty well played by the Wakes. I think, there were some scary things from Sotopoulos, but good play carries through. And getting Rayquaza out, getting that Trick Room up. Very nice stuff. Now we're going to go into game two and see how it goes. The Trick Room strat is now revealed. How will the Sotopoulos Stooges respond? So we see Banette, Sableye again, that easy Trick Room setup. We see Rayquaza and Melodic on the other side. We see a Hobbenberry and leftovers frisked out by the Banette. Now we know Rayquaza has Hobbenberry. We already knew Melodic had leftovers. Rayquaza goes immediately for a Mega Evolution, does get faked out by Sableye, can't move. And then Toxic comes out from Melodic into that Sableye, which will slowly chip it down. We see Banette using Trick Room. No surprises there. Now the Sableye goes for a Taunt into Melodic on the first turn of Trick Room. Poltergeist also coming out from that Banette into Melodic, which will bring it down to 63%. Scald will go into the Sableye, and Rayquaza fires back with a V-Create into the Banette, getting it from 100 down to 8%. Not quite the KO, but still pretty significant damage. Melodic heals a little bit from those leftovers back up to 60. Meanwhile, Sableye chipping down from Toxic down to 50. This next turn, 3 turns of Trick Room left. We see a swap into Jirachi from that Rayquaza. And another swap so double switch into Jirachi and Slaking from the Sotopoulos Stooges. Sableye goes for Disable, but does fail to do the double swap, and then a Destiny Bond from Banette also not going to work into that double swap. The Sableye gets chipped by Toxic down to 34% and eats its Citrus Berry back up to 60. We see a Taunt come out immediately from the Sableye into that Jirachi. We know that Jirachi doesn't have any moves after Taunt, so it's a pretty simple play. Poltergeist does go into Jirachi, bringing it down to 44%. Play rough, firing back from Slaking into the Sableye will result in Sableye going down. Jirachi's not able to skill swap after the Taunt. So now we see Torkoal come out in the last turn of Trick Room. Very dangerous stuff. Mawile is swapped in for Banette, and Torkoal goes for that Eruption. It will take out Jirachi and drop Slaking down to only 10%. Slaking is loafing around to Truant. And now we see Jirachi, now the Jirachi's been taken out, we see Rayquaza taking its place. This next turn, Slaking swapping out into Melodic. Mawile is Mega Evolving. Rayquaza goes for a Protect. Mawile also goes for a Protect. And then the Yawn comes from Torkoal into the Rayquaza, hits that Protect and does nothing. So free switch into Melodic there. And we see another switch. This time it is Banette coming in for the Mawile. Leftovers is Frisk. We see V-Create going into that Banette. Will definitely take it out. Immediately it only had 10%. And drops the stats of the Rayquaza, the defensive stats that is. Scald comes out from Melodic, dropping Torkoal down to 31%. But the Yawn does go into the Rayquaza. But this Rayquaza is fully capable of switching. So we see Rayquaza switching into that Slacking to avoid the Yawn. And also, so it switches to avoid the Yawn. And we see a Protect come out from Torkoal. Melodic hits the Scald into the Protect. And Mawile goes for the Play Rough into the Slacking slot, which will take it out. But now we have a situation where we have Rayquaza and Melodic versus these Torkoal and Mawile. And we've seen V-Create on the Rayquaza. So this should be a pretty simple game. We can see a Protect coming out from Rayquaza, actually. Nice, it avoids the Sucker Punch from that Mawile. And then the Scald goes from Melodic into Torkoal, finishes it off. And now it's a 2v1. Can Mawile do it all? Sucker Punch only does about 36% to Rayquaza, and the V-Create simply KOs it. And so that'll be the end of Game 2. So good adjustments, I think, overall from Sotoplis. Pretty impressive stuff. Protecting that Rayquaza for an end game scenario, definitely very effective. So we'll have to see how Game 3 goes and how both teams adjust. In Game 3, we see a Mawile Sableye lead this time into the Rayquaza Melodic. So this is a more typical lead from the Sunny Shore Wakes. Let's see what they are cooking this time. The Intimidate will drop that Rayquaza down, but it triggers competitive for Melodic. So Melodic does get a special attack boost, doubles its special attack. Very strong stuff there. So Rayquaza does stay in, goes for a Mega immediately, uses Protect. Protect also from Mawile. We see a Taunt come out from the Sableye into that Melodic. Melodic is not able to use Haze. Why would you want to use Haze? That would ruin your own boost. I feel like that's actually good that it got taunted. Okay, but anyway, we see Quash into Rayquaza. That is going to make sure that it moves last. Scald comes out from Melodic. Like, yeah, if you had used Scald on the first turn instead of Haze, you could kill this Mawile, because this Mawile is like actually taking 60% from the Scald. Yeah, so Mawile down to only 30% after the Scald. The play rough goes into Rayquaza, does kill it instantly. Oh, so that's like a big misplay to go for Haze there, I think. Yeah, I think that's a pretty big misplay. But yeah, so now Jirachi hits the field next to Melodic. You kind of have to... Okay, Scald is disabled. This is pretty annoying. Yeah, this is pretty annoying, because now that's probably your only attack. Skill Swap comes out from Jirachi, does take away Prankster from the Sableye. The Scald is disabled, so Melodic's not able to do anything right now. And then Mawile actually using Knockoff, not a move that we usually see from it, but nice. It does do well into the Jirachi, gets it down to only 25%. Removes the Aqua Berry. The taunt ends from Melodic, but it does switch into Slaking. I'm not sure I get why, when you could just Scald. You just lose your special attack boost for nothing. Okay, whatever. You switch into Slaking, and we see a double switch. Am I missing something? I'm so confused. Jirachi skill swap. And you just switch Melodic. Why does Jirachi's Protect fail? Jirachi uses Protect, but it fails. But it didn't Protect on the previous turn. So I'm really confused as to why Protect fails. I use Protect, but it fails. But then Jirachi, whatever, I don't know. That's so weird. Okay, Jirachi skill swaps the Slaking, which will remove Truant, which is nice. Shadow Ball comes out from Latias. I forgot. It was a double switch. Latias and Celio hitting the field. So Latias is able to take out Jirachi with a Shadow Ball. And Slaking is able to play rough the Latias, dropping it down to only 10%. So Yawn comes out from the Celio into Slaking, and Protect will come out. So next turn, so Latias protects, player from Slocking goes into that Latias and doesn't do anything. Toxic comes out from Melodic into the Celio, but another Yawn hits Melodic, and the Toxic will chip the Celio, and Slaking falls asleep. Okay, turn 7, we see a swap. Mawile comes in for that Celio. Draco Meteor comes out from the Latias, doing 88% to the sleeping Slocking, who does remain asleep. Scald comes out from Melodic. It is resisted by Latias, and even though Latias was only at 12%, it does live with just 1% health from that Scald. And that will mean that the Melodic is falling asleep as well. The burn does come out, though, from the Scald, finishing off Latias, luckily for the Cetopolis Stooges. But now we have two sleeping Pokemon. Sableye back on the field. Quash will go into Slaking just in case it does wake up. It does not get to wake up. It gets knocked off and does die from the Small and now it is just Melodic versus the world. Mawile goes for Protect. We see a taunt come out from Sableye. Another sleep turn from Melodic. Then we see a swap from Mawile back into Celio. Melodic gets taunted again, which doesn't do anything, obviously. So yeah, that's a failed taunt. It does wake up and use the Scald into the Celio, but it doesn't do very much. That Celio is chipping down from Toxic. Disable comes out. This will stop Melodic from using the Scald. Superfan comes out from Celio, dropping it to 50%. It heals up a little from the leftovers, and the taunt finally ends. The Toxic is chipping that Celio slowly but surely down to 66%. Turn 12, we see another taunt coming out from Sableye. It can't use Toxic after the taunt. Superfang comes out once again from the Celio, dropping that Melodic down to 29%. And then the Toxic dropping Celio down to 48%. We see another Quash. We see another Yawn. This is just painfully slow. Melodic is struggling now since it's both taunted and disabled. It does do basically no damage to Sableye and drops itself down to 15%. And now with another Quash and another Super Fang, Melodic, one more struggle, it will chip itself down to 0, and that is the game. And the series for the Sunny Shore Wakes. So yeah, that's it. That's week 5. We did it. Yay. So now it's time to go ahead and take a look at week 6. So I'm going to open up all these matches. And we'll just jump straight into week 6. I just got to take a moment to make sure I have no music on all of them. Now, these would be matches I actually haven't seen. I'm pretty sure I have actually seen all of those. I do not want to accidentally play any of this music. Okay. So yeah, week 6. Let's just do it. We're grinding it out. We're grinding it out. We're just gonna get through them. So here we go. As much as we can. I do have a cutoff at time. So yeah, but we're doing the best we can. So here we go. Game 1 of the Kecleon's Corner Bodega versus the Cetopolis Stooges. So yeah, for the Bodega, we have Groudon, Ludicolo, Altaria, Manectric, Linoon, this time, Galarian Linoon, and Feraligatr. On the opposite side, we're seeing the same squad we saw last week from the Cetopolis Stooges, Rayquaza, Jirachi, Melodic, Medicham, Slaking, and Grumpig. So let's see how it goes. So Ludicolo and Feraligatr are our leads into the Melodic and Slaking. We see a fake out immediately from Ludicolo on turn 1 into Melodic. Brick Break from Feraligatr into that Slaking. Doesn't do very much, about 25%. And then the Slaking will fire back with a Yawn into Feraligatr. Okay, interesting. A little more supportive option from that Slaking. And then the flinch from Melodic. The leftovers will heal Melodic back to basically full. And now we see a switch to avoid that Yawn into Altaria. Ludicolo goes for a Giga Drain into Melodic, chipping it down to 58%. Slaking is loafing around due to its truancy, and Melodic does use a Coil. Turn 3, we see an Alluring Voice come out from Altaria into Melodic, only does about 12%, quite weak attack there. Giga Drain does go into Melodic though, dropping it to just 4% remaining health. That leftovers chip making all the difference to keep this thing alive right about now. Heavy Slam comes from Slaking into Altaria, dropping it to 33%, and then a second coil from Melodic. Melodic does get up to 10% from the leftovers. Turn 4, we see a swap from Slaking into Jirachi. Draco Meteor comes out from Altaria into that Jirachi. It is resisted, only drops Jirachi to about 80%, and drops Altaria's special attack. Giga Drain from Ludicolo finishes off Melodic, and we see a Rayquaza coming out to replace the fallen Melodic. Turn 5 here, we see Rayquaza Mega evolving into Mega Ray, although the Cloud9 from Altaria will disable those strong winds. We see a Protect from Rayquaza, Alluring Voice from Altaria into that Rayquaza, hits the Protect. Ludicolo uses Encore, but it does fail because Jirachi has not moved yet. We see a Flash Cannon go into Altaria, but from the Jirachi does not quite finish it off, dropping it to 3%. Turn 6, we see Altaria using Draco Meteor a second time. It is at half special attack this time into that Rayquaza. The Hobbenberry drops it significantly, plus the special attack drop. Rayquaza only takes 20% health from this Draco Meteor, down to 80%, and Altaria's special attack is very, very low. Rayquaza uses Dragon Ascent into Ludicolo, drops it down to Sash, and lowers the attack stats, defensive stats of that Rayquaza. Jirachi finishes off Altaria with a Flash Cannon at the end of the turn. We see a Feraligatr replacing the fallen Altaria. Okay, turn 7, we see Feraligatr go for a Mega using Outrage into Rayquaza. Does target the right slot. Outrage is not a move you can target, so lucky for James there. That Outrage does pretty big damage into Rayquaza. Does finish it off. Scald comes out from Ludicolo into Jirachi, dropping it from 50 to 20%. And then Energy Ball firing back from Jirachi into Feraligatr does get the special defense drop, but doesn't do much damage, dropping Feraligatr to just 80% with that Energy Ball. Slacking hits the field to replace Rayquaza. Feraligatr still locked into Outrage, does Outrage into that Slacking, dropping it to 30%. Feraligatr now confused as the Outrage does end. Scald goes into Jirachi and finishes it off from the Ludicolo, and Slacking uses a Yawn into Feraligatr. Feraligatr uses a Brick Break to finish off Slacking, and that will end the battle. So pretty good stuff from James. I'm kind of surprised that Mega Feraligatr worked out that well. It did help you resist the Energy Ball. But Outrage is really risky. Like, you could just be slamming an Ice Punch with Sheer Force Life Orb, and it would be probably a little bit stronger. But, you know, it is what it is. Now we're going into Game 2. Let's just see how it goes. So the adjustment here, we see Ludicolo and Feraligatr into the Slacking and Medicham. Ludicolo is immediately going to switch into Altaria. Feraligatr is going to immediately switch into Altaria. And we see a Fake Out from Medicham into that Ludicolo, doing 30% massive damage from that Fake Out. Ludicolo flinches, obviously. And we see a Yawn coming out from Slacking into Altaria. Altaria now drowsy. Turn 2, Altaria goes for a Mega Form, uses Alluring Voice into Medicham, does drop it down to Sash. And Skill Swap comes out from Medicham. We see an Encore into the Medicham as well from that Ludicolo, which will lock it into Skill Swap. But the Skill Swap has happened, and now Slaking is no longer Truant. Heavy Slam comes out from Slaking, does kill the Altaria on one hit. We see Groudon hitting the field to replace the Altaria. Medicham is Truant now, so can't do anything this turn. Ludicolo uses Giga Drain into Slaking, dropping it down to 63%, healing Ludicolo back to nearly full. Seed Bomb comes out from Seed Bomb comes out from Slaking, killing Groudon instantly. Wow, very impressive stuff from Slaking to just murder that Groudon instantaneously before he gets to do anything. And things are starting to look rough for the Bodega. Brick Break comes out, Feraligatr hits the field to replace the Groudon. Does drop Slaking down to 33%. Skill Swap from Medicham puts Truant onto Ludicolo, so locking that Medicham into skill swap. Not working out as great as you would have hoped. Now Ludicolo is Truant. Giga Drain comes out from Ludicolo, dropping Slate King finally. And now we have a Swift Swim, Medicham, a Truant Ludicolo into a Feraligatr and Ludicolo Swift Swim, Medicham, and Jirachi into Feraligatr and Truant Ludicolo. So yeah, Feraligatr will use Liquidation into Jirachi, but because of the Sun that Groudon set, it doesn't do very much, dropping Jirachi only to 85%. Skill Swap comes out from Medicham, stealing away Sheer Force from Feraligatr, which is a bummer for sure, and getting Medicham that Sheer Force ability, so that's really funny. Ludicolo is looping around to Truant. Reflect comes out from Jirachi, and Medicham's Encore has now ended. Protect comes out from Jirachi. Liquidation goes into the Protect, doesn't do anything. Poison Jab comes out from Medicham. It does 80% to Ludicolo, dropping it down to just 20. Scald fires back from Ludicolo, finishes off that Medicham. And now it's just Jirachi and Rayquaza versus Ludicolo for Alligator. What will happen next? We see a Mega Evolution from Rayquaza. Outrage comes out from the Feraligatr, but with the Reflect and the Hobbenberry, Rayquaza only takes 20% from that Outrage. Very good stuff. And the Dragon Ascent fires back into Feraligatr, does 63% to the Feraligatr, dropping it to about a third of its health. Now the Ludicolo is loafing around due to the Truant, and Jirachi finishes off Feraligatr with the Energy Ball. And with only Ludicolo remaining, it's easy enough for Rayquaza to use a Dragon Ascent and finish the game there. So very good stuff. Now we'll go to game 3 and see who can take the W this time around. So Ludicolo hits the field with Feraligatr. We see Rayquaza Melodic on the opposite side. Feraligatr goes for an immediate Mega Evolution, so does Rayquaza. We see Fake Out into Rayquaza. Feraligatr goes for Outrage, but because you can't choose the targeting, it does hit the Melodic. So it does drop Melodic to 34%, so pretty impressive damage, but not the target you would have hoped to hit. Rayquaza does flinch, and Melodic goes for a Coil. We see Melodic switching out into Jirachi. Rayquaza goes for a Protect. Outrage goes into the Jirachi, does 21%, and confuses Feraligatr, thus ending the Outrage. Giga Drain goes into that Jirachi, so that's swapped in for the Melodic, doesn't do too much, gets Jirachi down to 58. Now we see a swap from Ludicolo into Groudon here. Goes for another Outrage on Feraligatr, does get through the confusion and hit the right target into the Rayquaza. The Hobbenberry will drop the damage and let Rayquaza live with only 33%. Dragon Ascent fires back from Rayquaza into the Groudon, does 43% and drops Rayquaza's defensive stats. Jirachi uses Reflect. Turn 4, Rayquaza goes for Protect. Outrage this time landing into the Jirachi, doing only 15%. Energy Ball from the Jirachi hits the Groudon, drops it to 30%. Groudon is able to use Precipice Blades to finish off Jirachi, but it hits the Protect of Rayquaza. And Slaking comes out. Turn 5, we see the Confusion ending from Feraligatr, uses Brick Break into Slaking, dropping it to 64%, and ending that Reflect. Ice Beam comes back out from Rayquaza into Groudon, will finish off that Groudon. And Seed Bomb from Slaking, this time resisted by the Feraligatr's Dragon typing, or making it neutral, that is. Feraligatr is able to survive with 65% remaining. Altaria hits the field. Cloud9 ending the strong winds from Rayquaza. Does go for an Alluring Voice into Rayquaza, but Rayquaza protects. Brick Break comes out from Feraligatr into the Slaking, dropping it to 20%. And Slaking is loafing around due to Truancy. Alluring Voice once again on turn 7 hits Rayquaza, no Protect this time around, finishes off that Rayquaza. Brick Break comes out from Feraligatr into Slaking and finishing off that Pokemon. Now it is just Melodic versus the world. Alluring Voice goes into Melodic, chipping it. Brick Break goes into Melodic, chipping it down to 3%. Scald fires back into Altaria, only doing a measly 10% or 20%. And Altaria will finish the game with yet another Alluring Voice. And the Bodega takes the dub over the Satopolis Stooges in game 3. Very good stuff. Okay, give me 1 second. Um, okay, so let's move on. So here we are. This is my match versus my brother. Uh, so yeah, yeah, I have Illumi's Illumi's Salamence, Guard of Wire, Shift Tree, Slowking, and Walrein. And he has Latios, Chimecho, Aggron, Volbeat, Crawdaunt, and Exploud. Um, the interesting thing here is Volbeat gets taunt and Illumis doesn't, so it makes it very tricky. And we will see that kind of play out a little bit. So here we see I lead with Illumis and Salamence, very typical stuff, into Latios and Volbeat. I know that I can always be faster than Latios and kill it, so that's kind of why I have done this. So we see Mega Salamence come out, Tailwind from Volbeat. I also match with a Tailwind to make sure that I don't lose the speed. I use Dragon Claw into Latios, but what I didn't expect was Latios to have Focus Sash. So Latios survives with the Focus Sash, 1% HP, Draco Meteor fires back, and it does kill my Salamence instantly. So that is a bit of a rough time. I bring out Slowking, and we see Latios switch out into Chimecho. Taunt comes out from Volbeat, which, bit of a bummer for Taunt comes out from Volbeat into Loomies, so bit of a bummer for Loomies there. I do have a Mental Herb, but I'm going for Bug Buzz anyway. It does massive damage because Latios switched into Chimecho. So Latios preserved with 1 HP, but Chimecho does take 53% from this Bug Buzz, dropping it to less than half. I use Calm Mind on Slaking here. Or not Slaking, Slowking. I'm still thinking from last game. So yeah, that does get Slowking into a bit of a better position with the special attack and special defense boost. But I forgot about Encore, and so I got Encored into my Calm Mind, which is a big bummer. I use Bug Buzz again into Chimecho. Psychic comes out from Chimecho, does big damage back into my Illumies, and Chimecho's down to 25%. I continue to Calm Mind because I have to. Taunt comes out once again into the Illumies. Kind of whatever, I was going for Bug Buzz anyway. Bug Buzz gets Chimecho down to 5%, but this Chimecho goes for a Calm Mind. I go for a Calm Mind again, so I have really, really high stats on Slowking, but I'm not able to move. The Tailwind does end on both sides. Bug Buzz comes out from Volbeat into the Slowking, but it doesn't really do much due to all the boosts, so only about 10%. And then the Bug Buzz from Volbeat actually goes in, or Bug Buzz from Illumies actually goes into Volbeat this time, dropping it 29%. And then Volbeat is revealed to have Red Card, which forces my Shift Tree out. Flash Cannon does come out from Chimecho into the Shift Tree, dropping it to Sash. And then I use another Calm Mind. So yeah, Shift Tree's down to Sash, which kind of sucks. I switch back into Illumies. Protect comes out from Chimecho. Encore once again into the Slowking. Nothing I can do about that. And then I use another Calm Mind. I need this Volbeat dead if I want to ever be able to use Slowking. But unfortunately, that is just not going to happen. So Psychic will come out from Chimecho with the Tailwind support, making sure that it moves faster so Volbeat is able to Tailwind there. And Chimecho, yeah, uses Psychic, kills the Illumies. I'm still just Calm Minding myself to the ends of the game. And then we do see Shift Tree hit the field, but with the Tailwind support, Volbeat's able to move faster and use Bug Buzz to get the remaining 1% of Shift Tree's HP away. And now it is just impossible for Slowking to win because it can never do anything other than Calm Mind, thanks to Encore. And so it will slowly die. Actually, funnily enough, he didn't go for an Encore there, but it doesn't really matter. It's just way too late. Yeah. Okay, so that was a bit of a rough game 1. Game 2, I'm like, okay, I gotta make sure I don't get encored so much. So I go for Shift Tree and Salamence as my lead this time. We see an Aggron, Volbeat, as a response. I go for a Mega immediately from Salamence and fake out into Aggron. Tailwind comes out from Volbeat. I go for Double Edge into Volbeat and kill it instantaneously, so I don't have to deal with that stupid garbage Pokemon anymore. Aggron can't move because it is flinched, and now I'm in a good position with Salamence. Um, there is a Tailwind on the opposing side, though. So I switch out the Salamence into the so I guess it's a bad position for Salamence. I switch out the Salamence into Gardevoir, anticipating a Dragon type move into that slot. I go for a Sucker Punch into Latios, which drops it down to 7%. Draco Meteor does in fact go into the Gardevoir, but Gardevoir is immune to Dragon moves, so that's really nice. Ice Punch fires from Aggron, doing about half to the Shiftry. So we see a Protect from Latios this time. I use a Sucker Punch again. It doesn't exactly work. I use Aura Sphere this time on the Gardevoir, which is faster than Aggron, even under Tailwind conditions, because it is a max speed Gardevoir here. And this must be not a max speed Aggron, or like very little speed investment Aggron. So that Aura Sphere is able to take it out immediately. It has already taken some damage from the fake out, so no Sturdy will protect it, and it dies to the Aura Sphere. Chimecho does now hit the field. One more turn of Tailwind. Shadow Ball goes out into the Gardevoir, so that does hit first. Flash Cannon goes into... Why did I not Sucker Punch? I'm wondering. I feel like Sucker Punch was really safe here for me, but I didn't do it. I could have finished the Latios if I just Sucker Punched. Yeah, that was kind of silly, I think. Or I could have Sucker Punched Chimecho, or I could have Sucker Punched either to get some damage. It just like, really doesn't make sense for me not to do it. Okay, but anyway, Flash Cannon just finishes off Shiftry. Maybe I thought I was faster, I don't know. But Moonblast does go into Latios and finishes off that Latios. Now we have Salamence coming out once again. Double Edge into Chimecho does 36%. Nothing amazing, but chips me down with the recoil. Chimecho uses Disable. Or sorry, I use Disable to disable Flash Cannon from Chimecho on my Gardevoir. Chimecho uses Psychic and finishes off Salamence. But now I have Walrein hitting the field. I use Protect to protect myself against the Psychic from Chimecho. Walrein uses Yawn into Chimecho. And now I can Aura Sphere the Chimecho for some decent chip damage, 35%. Psychic will not quite kill Gardevoir. Gardevoir very specially bulky, even though I was down to only 30%. I only lost 29%, so I'm down at 3% from 33. Super Fang does miss the Chimecho. Chimecho falls asleep, and now we can Aura Sphere the Chimecho and just Ice Beam the Chimecho, and then that'll be the last Pokemon to fall. And we take game 2, and now we're going to game 3. So yeah, let's see how it goes. I did not switch my leads, which I probably should have. I go for Shiftry, Salamence, and this time I'm facing down Latios and Volbeat, so this is a very scary time. I do something which I wish I didn't do, which is I just decided to sacrifice Salamence for damage into Latios. But I could have just used Salamence to kill Volbeat, so I'm kind of mad. But anyway, here's what happens. I fake out the Volbeat. I don't want Tailwind to go up, and then I get red card, drag Gardevoir out, and then I go for a Dragon Claw into Latios, which does drop it to Sash. I know that I'm going to die on Salamence in return, but I don't know why I thought this was a good trade. It's kind of not, because I just get Sash and then die on my big Pokemon. When I could have killed Volbeat here, I could have faked out Volbeat and then just killed it, and that would have been, like, pretty legit. I was worried about Protect Tailwind, and so that's, I don't know, but I could have just faked out and gone for the Volbeat. I should have done this. If I did this, I think it's a totally different game, because Volbeat will proceed to destroy everything I want to do. So here comes, we see Shiftry hitting the field in replacement of the lost Salamence. Turn 2, we see a switch from Latios into Aggron. Fake Out goes into the Aggron. Bug Buzz comes out from the Volbeat into the Shiftry, dropping it to 1%, dropping it to Sash. Moonblast fires back into Volbeat, but doesn't quite kill it. Now I switch from Shiftry into a Loomies, and then I get Encored by the Volbeat. I didn't even consider this, but yeah, I get Encored by the Volbeat into the Moonblast, so now I Moonblast the Aggron for only 30% because it resists that Moonblast. I was trying to Aura Spirit, but I kind of just didn't respect the Encore, and I get killed by the Heavy Slam. So Gardevoir is out, and now it's just Shiftry Illumis versus the world. I use a Bug Buzz to finally finish Volbeat, but Shiftry in no world can ever kill Aggron. It uses Leaf Blade into the Aggron, doesn't do that much. Head Smash comes out from Aggron, finishes off Illumis, and now it's Sucker Punch from Shiftry to finish out Latios, but Shiftry just can't do it against Aggron. Aggron's too big of a problem, and Aggron uses a move and just kills Shiftry. I didn't see what move it was. Ice Punch, yeah, so it doesn't matter though. Shiftry was only 1 HP. So yeah, GG. And I lost, rip. Okay, this one is the Satopolis Stooges versus the, or sorry, not Satopolis Stooges, what am I talking about? The Gen 3 Janitors versus We Come in Peace. And so, yeah, We Come in Peace, they're bringing Speed Deoxys, Meganium, Hariyama, Masquerain, Regice, and Absol. And then the Gen 3 Janitors have on their side Kyogre, Zangoose, Dusclops, Breloom, Regirock, and Sharpedo. So fun stuff. Love to see Sharpedo. Yeah, let's see how it goes. So turn one we see the leads of Deoxys Speed with Meganium. On the other side, we have Zangoose Dusclops leads. Very interesting leads here. We see a Frisk, we have Lumberry and Meganiumite. So Lumberry for the Deoxys Speed and Meganiumite for Meganium. Wow, Lumberry instead of Sash is very surprising for Speed Deoxys. But yeah, immediate switch from Meganium into Regice. Shadow Sneak comes out from Dusclops into the Speed Deoxys. The Speed Deoxys uses Grass Knot on Zangoose, doing only 25%. And then Zangoose fires back with a Facade into Regice, doing only about 20%. Because that poison was not yet up. But now Zangoose will have the poison up. Sharpedo coming out in place of Dusclops. We see an ally switch from the Speed Deoxys. Knockoff goes from Zangoose into the Regice, knocking off a loaded dice from Regice. So Regice goes for Icicle Sphere. Without the loaded dice, it only hits 2 times. So Zangoose is living at 42%. Toxic does chip it down a little. Turn 3, Zangoose comes out, Dusclops comes in. We see a swap of Regice goes out for a Hariyama. Sharpedo Mega Evolves and goes for a Crunch into Deoxys. It does hit a Protect from Deoxys though. And then turn 4 comes out. We see a Helping Hand from Dusclops into that Sharpedo. Fake Out goes into the Sharpedo. And Grass Knot from Deoxys will get that Sharpedo down to 1% or 3% about, and then it flinches because of the Fake Out. Turn 5, we see a swap from Dusclops back into Zangoose. Speed Deoxys is protecting, or detecting, I should say. Psychic Fangs comes out from Sharpedo, one-shotting the Hariyama. And Toxic will chip the Zangoose that just hit the field. And Meganium will come in to replace Hariyama. Turn 6, we see a Mega Evolution from the Meganium. Grass Knot comes out from Speed Deoxys into Zangoose, dropping it to 8%. Crunch comes out from Sharpedo, finishing off the Deoxys Speed at long last. Poison Jab from Zangoose will kill the Meganium instantaneously. The Toxic will finish off that Zangoose. But now it's just Regice versus the rest of the team for the Gen 3 Janitors. And it's not going to be a battle that Regice can win. Crunch from Sharpedo will finish off that Regice and conclude Game 1 in favor of the Gen 3 Janitors. And so now let's take a look at Game 2 and see how that one goes. We see a Hariyama and a Masquerain into Zangoose Sharpedo. So a good Intimidate drop onto both the Zangoose and the Sharpedo will limit their damage. Protect comes out from Sharpedo. Fake Out goes into that Protect from Hariyama. Poison Jab will launch from Zangoose into Masquerain, and Masquerain uses a Tailwind. Toxic Poison does apply to Zangoose, getting the Toxic boost. And now we see a swap from Hariyama into Meganium. Sharpedo Mega evolves with the speed boost. U-Turn comes out from Masquerain into Sharpedo, dropping it under 50%. Hariyama hits the field, the result of the U-turn, and then the Psychic Fangs goes into the swapped in Meganium, only doing about 33%. Poison Jab, though, also coming out from Zangoose into the Meganium. It has not yet Mega Evolved, though, so it is able to survive with only 20% health remaining, and Zangoose will get the Poison Chip. Turn 3, we see a Mega Evolution from the Meganium. Fake out from Hariyama into the Sharpedo. It will flinch and be unable to move, and then Dazzling Gleam fires from Meganium, finishing off that Sharpedo, doing big damage to Zangoose, getting it down to 28%. But Zangoose can finish off Meganium with the Poison Jab at the end of the turn, and will chip from Toxic down to just 15% remaining. Dusclops hits the field, and to replace Sharpedo, meanwhile Deoxys Speed replacing Meganium. And we see a Frisk, a Citrus Berry, and that Lumberry we've seen before onto the Hariyama. The Citrus Berry is on Hariyama. Regirock will swap out at the beginning of turn 4 for the Zangoose. Shadow Sneak from the Dusclops into the Deoxys Speed. Deoxys Speed uses Grass Knot onto Regirock, drops it to below half. Belly Drum coming out from the Hariyama. It will eat its Citrus Berry back up to 75%, but now its attack is boosted through the roof. Regirock is going to go for a Protect. Shadow Sneak comes out from the Dusclops into the Deoxys Speed. Grass Knot will not hit the Regirock due to that Protect, and neither will the Drain Punch into that Regirock, so good Protect there. We see a swap from Regirock into Zangoose. Shadow Sneak once again chipping away at this Deoxys. It is now down to only 35% health. Grass Knot comes from Deoxys into Dusclops, only doing 10% there. Drain Punch will finish off that Zangoose that just switched in and heal the Hariyama back to 80. Regirock now hitting the field to replace the fallen Zangoose. Deoxys Speed uses a Detect to protect itself from the Shadow Snake. Iron Head comes out from Regirock, doing a little bit of damage to the Hariyama and the actual flinch, so the Hariyama will not be able to move. No damage coming out. Turn 8, we see a swap. This time it is Masquerain coming in for the Deoxys. It's going to get an Intimidate drop onto Dusclops and Regirock. The Shadow Sneak won't do too much, just about 5%, dropping Masquerain down to 63. Iron Head once again from Regirock, hoping for another flinch, and it gets it, another flinch onto Hariyama. Oh no, this Hariyama is not able to move. And so that will be the end of that turn. Shadow Sneak goes into Hariyama. U-turn comes out from Masquerain into the Dusclops, dropping it to 86. Deoxys Speed replacing the Masquerain due to a U-turn. Rock Blast this time from Regirock into the Deoxys. It does just barely finish it off, so no more Deoxys, and now it is time for Hariyama to finally move, uses a Drain Punch, finishes off the Regirock, and heals himself back to 44%, but now it's Masquerain hitting the field, dropping Dusclops' attack even further, down to half of what it was, and actually, I guess Hariyama can't do anything? It uses Wide Guard, so it doesn't have any way of hitting Dusclops. So yeah, it just uses Wide Guard, and now it's just going to be a U-turn battle. Dusclops uses Toxic onto Hariyama, which will start the chip. Hariyama continues to spam Wide Guard. Shadow Sneak goes into the Hariyama, does chip it a little bit more. We see another U-turn. This U-turn is doing 4% every time, and the Toxic is chipping down the Hariyama pretty good. Shadow Sneak going to Hariyama. Dual Wing Beat misses the Dusclops, and now that is a dead Hariyama. I'm not sure why you don't just like Toxic. Dual Wing Beat does 9% to Dusclops. I'm sure you're supposed to Toxic. Yeah, Toxic does finally come out into this Masquerain. And so now you're on a timer, and both Pokemon are doing like 8% to each other each turn. But the Toxic is going to slowly chip down this Masquerain, and Dusclops is going to just carry the game. And yeah, the Toxic just chips down the Masquerain faster than the and then Masquerain can chip Dusclops, because they're both doing like 5% on each hit, so it just eventually, the numbers are not in favor. Wow, so that's a really fun, that's a fun end. Dusclops, kind of a baller. Kind of a baller. Alright, cool. So, was that game 2? Wait, did I miss a game? That was game 2. Right? Oh no. Wait, yes, that was game 2. Okay, so yeah, that was game 2 for the Gen 3 janitor. Sorry, doing this Bonanza thing is frying my brain. faster than I thought it would. I think I'm gonna end with week 6, and then I will definitely make a Bonanza part 2 for week 7, probably still today. So just stay tuned, stay tuned, stay tuned. It's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. I'm gonna do all of it. I have to. I have to. My honor demands it. Okay, now we have another week 6 match. This one is the Steampunks versus the Sunny Shore Wakes. So let's just see how this goes. The Wakes have brought Latias, they have brought Sableye, they have brought Mawile, Celio, Torkoal, and Bennett. And then on the other side, we see Flygon, which is interesting. Swellow, Pelipper, Swampert, Shedinja, and Metagross, as usual. So pretty normal stuff except for Flygon. Yeah. Let's see how it goes. So we see a Sableye lead with Latias into a Shedinja and Swampert. So this is interesting. Fake out from Sableye into the Swampert will cause it to flinch. Mystical Fire from the Latias into the Shedinja will trigger its Focus Sash. And then Shedinja does get a special attack drop, but Poltergeist from Shedinja goes into Sableye, dropping it to 40. This is where it's like, I think this Poltergeist, I know because I helped build this team, like the Poltergeist into the Latias would just kill it. So this is a bit of a odd choice, I think. But yeah, then we see a flinch. Celio comes in for Sableye. Mystical Fire will finish off that Shedinja, and Earthquake comes out from the Swampert, does very little damage into Celio, and obviously doesn't do anything for Latias, who has Levitate. Pelipper hits the field. This is putting Swampert into a good position. Swampert goes for Protect. Energy Ball does go into that Protect slot. Tailwind comes out from the Pelipper. Not a very necessary Tailwind, but you know, it is what it is. I don't mind it because this will let Pelipper outspeed, which could be helpful for killing Latias before it gets an Energy Ball to kill you. Icy Wind comes out into Pelipper and drops its speed. Knockoff from the Swampert. So no Mega for Swampert, but does, because of the Tailwind, still act first into the... Yeah, so the knockoff will get Latias down to 26%, knock off the Expert Belt. Energy Ball does come out from Latias. So Latias is still faster than Pelipper, even in Tailwind. And then Pelipper will go for the Hurricane and finish off Latias. And the Icy Wind. Well, it's probably due to the Icy Wind speed drop, actually. Yeah, because now this Pelipper is down to normal speed even in Tailwind because the second Icy Wind comes out. Mawile hits the field into the Metagross and Pelipper. Or sorry, Metagross hits the field on the other side. So yeah, then the Clear Body will block the Intimidate drop. We see Metagross go Mega. Wide Guard comes out from Pelipper. Not really sure why. Meteor Mash goes into the Mawile, dropping it to only 4%. Huge Meteor Mash. Yawn goes out into Metagross, though, from the Celio. Sucker Punch will finish off this Metagross. This is another one where it's like, you can just protect the Metagross and let Pelipper finish off the Mawile. And instead you don't. So Pelipper finishes off the Mawile with Weather Ball. Super Fang misses from Celio, and now it's just Sableye and Celio versus Pelipper. Will-O-Wisp goes out into the Pelipper. Super Fang hits the Pelipper down to 32%. Hurricane will finish off the Sableye. And yeah, now an Icy Wind bringing Pelipper down to 2%. Pelipper fires back with a Hurricane, drops the Celio to 37. Yeah, drops it to 42. But the burn from that will finish off the Pelipper. Yeah, I think if you protect the Metagross to not let yourself get killed by Sucker Punch for no reason, then you have Metagross, and then Metagross can just like hit Celio, and then you don't lose. So yeah, I think that was a pretty rough one. Not knowing how Sucker Punch works. I did talk to her after that match, and she's like, oh, I didn't know Sucker Punch always goes first. It's like, if I attack. It's like, yeah, that's how it works. So yeah, all right. Game 2. This time we see another Sableye Latias lead into another Shedinja and Metagross. Or sorry, this is different. It's Metagross, Shedinja. So Metagross comes out, instantly Mega Evolves. Will-O-Wisp does land onto that Metagross, very rough for Metagross. Mystical Fire does come from the Latias into Shedinja, triggering that Focus Sash. Meteor Mash from the Metagross hits Sableye for 44%, and then Poltergeist will finish off the Sableye. So Sableye dead, turn 1, which is pretty good, but what are you going to do now? Because we see Mawile hitting the field. It's Intimidate dropping both it's Intimidate dropping both Pokemon because you know, the Clear Body is no longer in effect since Metagross has Mega'd. Sucker Punch does come out into the Metagross, doing more than half, down to 77%. The Mystical Fire will finish off Shedinja. This is another one where it's like, you have Shadow Sneak on Shedinja, you could at least get a little bit of damage with that instead of just dying for nothing. So Meteor Mash goes into the Mawile, does boost the attack of the Metagross, which is nice. Does only 20% though due to the burn. And yeah, this Metagross just isn't going to be able to accomplish anything. We do see Pelipper coming out. We see a Protect from Metagross. It does cause the Sucker Punch to fail. Mist Ball comes from the Latias into the Pelipper, dropping its special attack and dropping it to 30% remaining HP. Tailwind comes out from Pelipper. I would have loved to see like just a Weather Ball to kill Mawile, but you know, it is what it is. Now Sucker Punch will easily kill Metagross again. Just not knowing really like what Sucker Punch does. Hurricane goes into the Latias. I don't think that was very necessary. You just need this Mawile to die. Whatever, it doesn't matter. The Mist Ball will kill Pelipper. Swampert comes out in the rain, uses Wave Crash, does kill the Mawile here, but it's a little bit too little too late. The confusion does trigger on the Latias, so there's a chance here if this knockoff can KO. Celio comes out, confusion ends, Protect does come out, and that's going to burn the last turn of Tailwind. Yawn goes into the Swampert, and the Energy Ball will finish off Swampert. So not nearly as close of a game this time around. I think the burn of the Will-O-Wisp from the Sableye was a little bit too problematic, and yeah, overcommitted on killing Sableye and allowing Latias to live a little bit longer than it should. Since Latias is such a big counter to Swampert, it's like you want that Pokemon to go down sooner rather than later. But that concludes week 6. I'm gonna like cook a little of week 7 here. I think I'm going to, because I moved pretty rapidly, and week 7 is like all 2-0s. So it should be okay. It should be all right. All right, let's just slam it. Here we go. So first one, this is me versus Steampunks, Fairy Tailwind versus Steampunks. You know, what do we got? Let's find out. So I lead with Shiftry Slowking. I'm definitely gonna get a Trick Room up, no problem. And so I go for the Fake Out into the Swampert. U-turn comes out from Pelipper into the Shiftry. Armaldo hits the field, but then the Trick Room comes up, and so now I am the faster one in the Trick Room conditions. And so I use Scald on Slowking, killing Armaldo immediately. Poison Jab comes out from Swampert, does finish off Shiftry, so Swampert's still decently fast in Trick Room conditions. Walrein hits the field. I use Scald on Slowking, getting Swampert down to 50%. Oh, I forgot the Metagross was replacing the Armaldo. I use Belly Drum on Walrein. This was my big surprise move. I use Belly Drum on Walrein. I get down to, I use my Citrus Berry to get healed back up to 75%. Poison Jab comes out from Swampert into the Slowking, only doing about 20%, but it does poison me, so that's kind of annoying. Meteor Mash comes out from Metagross, dropping Walrein down to 43%, and giving Metagross the attack boost, so getting it up to +1 attack. Next turn, I go for Greenly goes for a double protect, so neither move will hit. I go for a Scald and a Crunch, not that it really matters. That does burn another Trick Room turn. I have one more turn of Trick Room left. I use Scald into Swampert and Crunch into Metagross. It does one-shot the Metagross with the Belly Drum boost. So that Metagross is dead, and then Swampert's down to 8% from the Scald. High Horsepower fires back into Slowking, dropping it to 18% with the Poison slowly chipping it down. Slowking only gets one more turn to live, no matter what. Pelipper does hit the field, getting some rain up. We see a Mega Evolution from Swampert, goes for a High Horsepower into Walrein, but Walrein does manage to live just barely from 40 to 6% there. U-turn does go into Slowking and finishes it off. Oh, this is where like a U-turn into Walrein would have been actually way better, because then Walrein would be dead. And Pelipper, or like, Slowking was dying anyway to poison, so it didn't really matter. But Liquidation comes out from Walrein and finishes off the Swampert. And now Walrein's still alive. Salamence hits the field, and it's just Salamence versus Pelipper. Hyper Voice comes out into Pelipper, drops it down to 49%. Hurricane goes into Walrein, which does finish it off. And here's where I was scared that Pelipper might have Ice Beam and I would just die. But I think it wouldn't matter. I think Walrein could still get it done. I don't know. It depends on if Walrein could kill Pelipper in one hit with like a Liquidation and Rain. It would have been close. But it ends up not being close and I end up winning. So that's nice. Game 2. Let's see how it goes. This time I go for just a more typical Salamence and Loomies lead. I do get the Intimidate drop onto the Swampert. I'm worried a lot about Swampert having Ice Punch. I go for Mega, and I use Sunny Day with Hyper Voice. I'm thinking I can just get some damage. But yeah, Tailwind from both sides. Or sorry, Tailwind from Pelipper to try to help with the Sun. But I go for an Encore, locking the Swampert into Protect. You can't Protect in front of Illumise. It's pretty bad. Hyper Voice comes out, chips both. Pelipper down to 24 now. Swampert to 65. Hurricane comes out from Pelipper, dropping Loomies down to 16% and confusing it. Swampert is locked into Protect, just keeps using it, does swap out into the Metagross on the subsequent turn. Tailwind comes out from Loomies. Hyper Voice will finish off Pelipper and chip Metagross down to 76%. Shedinja hits the field to replace Pelipper. Turn 4, Metagross goes for a Mega Evolution. Shadow Sneak comes out from Shedinja, dropping Loomies down to 1%, barely living. The Sunny Day with the Flamethrower from Salamence goes into the Metagross and does finish it off immediately, and Loomis hits itself in its confusion, causing it to die. Swampert comes back out. Cradily hits the field to replace the Illumise. Shedinja uses Ally Switch, which does the Hyper Voice comes out from Salamence. It triggers the Sash on the Shedinja and drops Swampert down to 26%. Giga Drain does hit the Shedinja as a result of the Ally Switch, moving Swampert out of the way from the Giga Drain from Cradily, and then Swampert's able to fire back with a Ice Punch into the Salamence, which Salamence does just barely somehow manage to live, just 10% remaining. One more turn of Tailwind. Shadow Sneak from Shedinja finishes off the Salamence. Ancient Power comes from Cradily into the Shedinja, does finish it off for the Sash already burnt by that Hyper Voice previously. Ice Punch from Swampert will get Cradily down to 51%, but now Swampert versus two Grass types, and Swampert does not do anything there, and that will finish off the game. So easy 2-0 for the Fairy Tailwind. Now we're moving on. Next matchup. This is the Setopolis Stooges versus the Gen 3 Janitors. That's what they're called. All right, let's go. Let's see how it goes. We see a Slaking lead with Metacham, Classic lead here. We see Dusclops and Regirock on the other side, frisking a Focus Sash and an Expert Belt. Shadow Sneak goes into Metacham. Skill Swap will remove that Truant from Slaking. Seed Bomb fires back into Regirock, does 90%, and Regirock just uses an Ice Punch into Slaking, only doing about 15%. So not a great turn 1. We see Jirachi coming in on turn 2 for the Metacham, and Sceptile coming in for Regirock. At the same time, Shadow Sneak goes into Jirachi, doing about 15%. Shadow Claw comes out from Slaking. Oh my god. Killing Dusclops in one hit. That is unbelievable. How on earth? I don't know. Okay, damn. Kyogre hits the field to replace the Dusclops. But yeah, Slaking just Slaking with I guess it's got Pure Power now, right? Yeah, it's got Pure Power instead of Truant. Okay, Sceptile uses Vacuum Wave, which is very interesting. A priority move that is fighting type and special, so I guess that is decent in disliking. But follow me from Jirachi redirects it to Jirachi, doesn't do very much. And Kyogre uses Water Spout. Oh man, Water Spout is good. In the rain, Water Spout is good, and it kills Slaking and Jirachi from 85 and 75%, respectively. They both just died to this Water Spout. Very, very good stuff from Kyogre. So Medicham comes back out onto the field. Rayquaza comes out, does have Airlock to stop that rain. It will immediately Mega, gets the Delta Stream going, uses Medicham, fake outs the Kyogre. Giga Drain comes from Sceptile into the Medicham, dropping it to just 10% remaining. Kyogre flinches, and Dragon Claw comes out from the Rayquaza into that Kyogre, getting it down to 9%. So this has to be like a Choice Scarf Kyogre, because it's faster than Rayquaza here. So it must be. So yeah, we see Protect come from Rayquaza, Dragon Pulse goes from Sceptile into the Rayquaza. Ice, it's not Choice Scarf. How is it faster? Is this like not speed on Ray? It's just like no speed on Ray or something. Huh. Okay. Well, Ice Beam goes into the Rayquaza, but it does protect itself. And Thunder Punch comes out from Medicham, finishes off the Kyogre. Sceptile also uses the Dragon Pulse into that protect. Regirock hits the field to replace Kyogre. And Regirock will use protect. Rayquaza goes for, or Sceptile goes for Giga Chain into Medicham to finish that off. Rayquaza goes for Dragon Ascent into Sceptile, killing it instantaneously and dropping Rayquaza's defenses. Now it is just Regirock versus Rayquaza, and an easy Dragon Claw will finish off the game in favor of the Stopless Stooges. And now we're going into game 2. Rayquaza Jirachi is the lead this time around into the Regirock Sceptile. So Rayquaza will immediately Mega Evolve. Dragon Pulse comes out from Sceptile into the Rayquaza. Hobbenberry will reduce that damage down to only 22%. Dragon Ascent fires back and kills Sceptile, and immediately Aura Sphere comes from Jirachi into Regirock, dropping it down to 51%. An Ice Punch from the Regirock will drop Rayquaza down to 20%. Breloom hits the field and immediately switches into Kyogre. It's a bit of a bait there. The Dragon Claw goes into Regirock, though. Doesn't really effectively bait what I think Alex was hoping for, and Regirock will die to the Aura Sphere Dragon Claw combination before it is able to move. Kyogre now on the field with Breloom. Rayquaza goes for a Protect. Breloom also goes for a Protect. Ice Beam hits the Rayquaza Protect, doing nothing. Thunder Punch from Jirachi will get Kyogre down to 60%. Jirachi uses Follow Me. Mach Punch goes into the Jirachi, doesn't do very much. Ice Beam also goes into the Jirachi, doesn't do very much. And that Follow Me allows the Dragon Ascent from Breloom, or from Rayquaza to drop Breloom to 1%. I think this is where if you Spore here, you actually bring Jirachi asleep, and then next turn you can Ice Beam Rayquaza and like start to play, but it is what it is. Protect comes out, Protect again from Breloom, Ice Beam into the Protect. We've seen this before. Aura Sphere goes into Breloom, hits the Protect. One more Protect from Breloom, this time going for the double. Ice Beam does go into Rayquaza and finishes it off. Yeah, this is where like if you had Spored Jirachi instead of what you did, it could look pretty different. But Aura Sphere will finish off Breloom. Now Slaking hits the field. Water Spout will go out, does big damage to both, getting Jirachi down to 28% and Slaking down to 54%. But the Thunder Punch with the combination of the Seed Bomb from Slaking will finish off that Kyogre. Yeah, I hate to say it, but I think if you Spore, like, you could win, actually. All right, game 1 of this is We Come in Peace versus the Spirit Airlines. We Come in Peace has Defense Deoxys, Meganium, Hariyama, Masquerain, Regice, and Absol. And then the Spirit Airlines have brought Latios, Chimecho, Volbeat, Crawdaunt, and Aggron and Spinda. So very, very typical stuff. Let's see how it goes. So we see Deoxys Defense hitting the field alongside Hariyama. In response, we have Aggron and Volbeat. Pressure is up from Deoxys. So Aggron goes for an immediate Mega. Volbeat uses a Tailwind. Aggron is able to get a defense boost from Iron Defense. Taunt will come from Deoxys into Volbeat. That will stop a lot of what Volbeat likes to do. Meanwhile, Hariyama able to use a Belly Drum, maxing out its attack, using a Citrus Berry to get back to 75%. Bug Buzz will go from Volbeat into Deoxys, and Iron Defense again comes from Aggron, getting it up to 3 times defense. Power Up Punch will hit Volbeat. Doesn't do very much damage, but importantly, boosts Deoxys attack by 1. Drain Punch goes into Aggron, will heal. It only does about 30%, but heals Hariyama up to 86. Bug Buzz comes out once again into Deoxys, dropping in a little bit more. Iron Defense once more from Aggron, maxing out its defense. Deoxys goes for a recover, healing it fully. Drain Punch will drop Aggron down to 44% and fill Hariyama's HP back to nearly full, 95%. Hariyama's going to switch. Oh, dropping, just abandoning your belly drum is wild to me. Okay, anyway, Bug Buzz goes into Deoxys, or goes into the Hariyama slot, I should say, dropping the Meganium down to 68%. Body Press also coming out from Aggron, kills the Meganium outright. Power Up Punch goes into Aggron, does get an attack boost from Deoxys, but only does like 3% to it. It really doesn't do anything. Now we see Hariyama coming back out onto the field, uses that fake out into Aggron, dropping it down to 36%. Tailwind comes out from Volbeat, getting speed control again, and Taunt once again from Deoxys, stopping the Volbeat. Latios does switch in immediately to avoid that taunt. Body Press will kill Hariyama outright with the 4 times defense. Aggron, and Power Up Punch once again into Aggron, just not doing very much, but Deoxys attack is up to 2.5 times. Regice hits the field, Shadow Ball goes into Deoxys from Latios, drops its special defense and drops it down to 50%. Body Press from Aggron easily kills Regice. Knockoff from Deoxys is able to kill Latios in response, revealing a Choice Scarf on that Latios. Volbeat hits the field one more time, one more turn of Tailwind. The Helping Hand goes into Aggron, and the Body Press will finish off the Deoxys, thus concluding the game in favor of the Spirit Airlines. And now we can go into game 2 and see what adjustments are made. So Deoxys defense hits the field, this time paired with a Meganium. And Volbeat Aggron is again on the other side. So Meganium will go for an immediate Mega Evolution. Helping Hand goes out into Aggron. Taunt from the Deoxys, this time into the Aggron to stop the Iron Defense setup. Weather Ball will go from Meganium into the Volbeat, killing it instantaneously. But can the Heavy Slam kill the Meganium? No, it can't. So Meganium goes down to 38% from that Aggron Heavy Slam. And Volbeat is gone. Latios now hits the field, uses Mystical Fire, finishes off the Meganium with that Mystical Fire. Knockoff from Deoxys goes into Latios, does pretty big damage, removing the Choice Scarf and bringing Latios down to only 36% health. But Head Smash from Aggron does some decent damage into Deoxys, getting it down to 62%. Now we see Hariyama hitting the field, but it's a bait. It switches immediately into Regice. We see Luster Purge from Latios into the Regice, does drop it down to 73%, while Knockoff finishes off Latios, and the Aggron concludes the turn by missing a Head Smash into Deoxys. So very unfortunate stuff there for Aggron, and Regice will heal a little bit for the leftovers. Taunt is now over for Aggron, and Chimecho hits the field. Knockoff goes from Deoxys into Chimecho, dropping it from 100 to 63. Calm Mind from Chimecho will set up a little bit. Iron Defense from Aggron, another setup move. And then we see a Thunder Wave from Regice into that Aggron, paralyzing it. Taunt will go into Chimecho. That'll stop any further shenanigans when it comes to Calm Mind. But Chimecho's just going for a Dazzling Gleam. Gets a little bit of chip onto both, nothing too significant. And wow, okay, Swagger from Regice into the Aggron. Head Smash does miss once again into Deoxys. And Swagger also just misses. Hariyama hits the field. Knockoff goes into Chimecho, dropping it down to 26%. Another Dazzling Gleam will chip the Deoxys down to 18%. The Hariyama swapped into that super effective move, loses 38% of its health. The Paralysis does trigger onto the Aggron, so that's nice. Fake Out goes into Aggron. Turn 7. Knockoff finishes off Chimecho, and that'll be a good turn here for the Become in Peace, but Aggron is still just here, just doing its thing. Drain Punch goes into Aggron, does a little bit of damage, but not too much. Paralysis triggers on Aggron again. That's really unfortunate. Taunt goes into Aggron. That'll stop any further shenanigans when it comes to Iron Defense uses. But Body Press does finally come out from that Aggron, finishes off the Hariyama. Now Regice on the field uses Protect. Power Up Punch from Deoxys into the Aggron, does very little damage. Body Press hits the Protect from Regice, doesn't do anything this turn. We see another Power Up Punch from Deoxys, dropping Aggron down to 47%, and we have now double the attack on We have double the attack on Deoxys. Swagger does come out from Edge Ice, does confuse the Aggron and boost its attack significantly, but it attacks through the paralysis and and the confusion. It shakes off the taunt and it kills Regice with that body press. Now it's just power up punch Deoxys versus this Aggron as it boosts its attack to 2.5%. Aggron hits itself in confusion, another power up punch, triggering, getting the Aggron down to 23%. It hits itself in the confusion again, down to 14% power up punch, gets it down to 3%. One more, hit itself in confusion, and it will die, but the confusion ends. It uses head smash and finishes off the Deoxys in a nail biter of a conclusion. Oh my goodness, the 3% Aggron with confusion and paralysis is able to just head smash this Deoxys from 65% all the way to death. And Aggron even faints from the recoil, but it does not matter. The airlines have won it in a huge, huge, exciting fashion. So I'd love to see it. I'd love to see it. That's very cool. Awesome. Okay. Final match. And we will conclude the Bonanza with Sunny Shore Wakes versus the Kecleon's Corner Bodega. So let's see just how it's going to go. This is a pretty nice matchup, I think, generally for Groudon, but it looks like it's going to be a Trick Room setup with Banette and Sableye hitting the field. Oh, I forgot to mention we have pretty much typical lineups for both. We have Latias, Sableye, Mawile, Celio, Torkoal, and Banette for the Wakes, and then for the Bodega we have the Groudon, Ludicolo, Altaria, Linoon, Feraligatr, and Registeel. Really, the Linoon is the only one that's maybe a little different, but we do see Linoon like not infrequently anyway. So yeah, anyway, Ludicolo, Feraligatr facing down this Trick Room combination here. So the Frisk will reveal Life Orb and Focus Sash, so Life Orb onto Feraligatr, and Focus Sash onto Ludicolo. And we see a Fake Out into Feraligatr immediately. That will cause it to flinch. We see an Encore into... Oh, nice Encore, actually. Locking this Sableye into Fake Out. Good prediction there. But the Trick Room will come out from the Banette. And now Torkoal hits the field. Good swap. The Poltergeist comes from Banette into the Feraligatr, dropping it down to 29% Feraligatr. Ludicolo drops a Giga Drain into the Banette, dropping it to 50. And Feraligatr actually goes for a Dragon Dance. Ooh, that's a greedy Dragon Dance. That's a greedy Dragon Dance. Yeah, because now you're in big trouble against this Torkoal. Torkoal is able to use Eruption, finishes off Feraligatr, drops Ludicolo down to Sash in the sun with the Trick Room. The Poltergeist does fail because there is no item for Ludicolo to be attacked by, and Ludicolo fires back with a Skull, dropping Torkoal down to 55%. Groudon does hit the field now. In this Trick Room, the Eruption will finish off the Ludicolo. Groudon doesn't take too much damage, but with the Poltergeist, it's down to 28% between the Poltergeist and the Eruption. It is able to fire back with the Precipice Blades, taking both KOs, however. And now Sableye hits the field alongside Latias against Groudon and Altaria, with only one turn of Trick Room remaining and no Sun to speak of. Mega Latias does come out, countered by Mega Altaria. Fake Out goes into that Altaria. Heat Crash goes into the Sableye, dropping it down to 33%. Energy Ball does finish off Groudon. And Altaria flinches. Trick Room is over. Now it's Altaria just versus these two. Altaria uses Pain... Sableye uses Pain Split to heal itself back up and drop Altaria down to 50%. So now they're both at 50 about each. Altaria uses Alluring Voice, which does go into the Protect of the Latias. Quash goes into Altaria, dropping its turn order to last, and the Mist Ball will finish off Altaria and then conclude the game in favor of the Sunny Shore Wakes. So well played. And now we move on to the final game of the Bonanza, Game 2, Sunny Shore Wakes versus the Bodega. Let's see how it will play out. I am excited to be through all of it. So here we are. We see the same Trick Room lead, this time with Groudon up front, though, paired with Ludicolo, and the Trick Room lead of Banette and Sableye. The Frisk will reveal Assault Vest on Groudon, and we still see the Sash on Ludicolo. So this Fake Out goes into the Ludicolo, causing it to flinch. Groudon goes for Precipice Blades. It does miss the Sableye. Very unfortunate miss, but it does 80% to that Banette. And Trick Room comes up. Now Will-O-Wisp goes into Groudon, cuts its attack in half. Destiny Bond from that Bayonet will cause the Groudon Precipice Blades to cause Groudon to die. So Groudon is very dead, but so is Bayonet. Scald comes out from Ludicolo into the Sableye, dropping it to 50%. I think you just want an Energy Ball when you're in the sun. Scald is just weaker in the sun, so that's probably not the best of moves. Maybe you're anticipating a switch into Torkoal, though, to be fair. Yeah, so now Torkoal's out in Trick Room with 3 turns left to go, and very big, very, very powerful Eruption. Altaria does swap in, which does cancel the sun. Actually, that's a really nice move there. Will-O-Wisp will come out into that Feraligatr, cutting its attack in half. Eruption will not do very much damage with the sun canceled. And with both of these Pokemon resisting it, 70% on Altaria, 63% on Feraligatr. The Liquidation comes out from Feraligatr, dropping Torkoal down to 51%, but because of the burn, doesn't do very much. Pain Split will come out into Altaria, healing Sableye very little and doing very little to Altaria, so not a huge gain there, but another Eruption will drop Altaria and Feraligatr to 44 and 37% respectively. Liquidation comes out into Torkoal, dropping it down to 5% remaining HP, and then Altaria hits the Alluring Voice into the Sableye, dropping it down to just 10%. One more turn of Trick Room remaining. Altaria goes for Mega Evolution. Pain Split will heal Sableye very slightly while dropping Altaria down to 28%. Weather Ball goes from Torkoal into the Altaria, does finish it off, and Liquidation will finish off Torkoal at the same time. Trick Room is over, and Ludicolo is back out on the field. This time Ludicolo paired with Feraligatr into the combination of Sableye and Mega Latias. So yeah, Latias does go for that Mega. Uses a Protect on turn 1. Fake Out goes into the Latias. That'll be a wasted a wasted Fake Out. The Pain Split from Sableye is able to heal Sableye back to 56% while also dropping Ludicolo down to 57. Liquidation comes out from Feraligatr, but with the crit will actually kill through that burn, getting rid of Sableye once and for all. And now it is just Latios versus the world. Ice Punch comes out from Feraligatr, drops Latios down to 65%. Mist Ball from the Latios drops Feraligatr down. Ludicolo goes for a Giga Drain. Crits only 17% though. It gets Ludicolo back to 68, but the Mist Ball will finish off the Ludicolo on the final turn of the Bonanza. Latios. I kept calling it Latios. I think I call it Latios a few times. That's just because it's blue and it's Mega, but Latias is able to do it and take a 6th win for the Sunny Shore Wakes, closing out the season with an impressive 6-1 record, and also closing out the Bonanza. So thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed. I hope my casting was clear, understandable, and enjoyable. And yeah, some really fun games. Love to see it. And looking forward to some playoff content before long. But that's